Hi everyone, and welcome to TWF Impact or Hit. Hi, Jonathan Coachman. No, my mistake. Oh yeah. Hi everyone, welcome to Impact or Hit. I, Joey Styles, with Jonathan Coachman and with Aiden English. And today on Impact or Hit, we got back from Walmart and Burger King and Save a Lot or Keep a Lot, so that's why the film went up later than it would. And today we're going to talk about what happened yesterday on Impact or Hit. Yesterday on Dynamite or Might, we saw Keith Lee win a Kingly Thunder, or fighting Kingly, to win the right to fight Asuka or Ricochet. Whoever Asuka or Ricochet, whoever the TWF heavyweight fighter happens to be, happens to either be Asuka or Ricochet. Joey Styles says. Yes, it does, Jonathan Coachman says. And Keith Lee has been in the toy wrestling gathering since 2022 or 2022 while or so. And he said it's his breakout year. And he says you will see him as the TWF heavyweight fighter. I don't want to go against what you say, Joey or Jonathan, but I'm going to tell you right now, I truly believe that either Ricochet or Asuka going against Keith Lee, it's not going to do very well. You know, when Keith Lee was in EPW, WWE, and now AEW, he may have been seen as their answer to Bobby Lashley. But since Bobby Lashley went to AEW, Keith Lee isn't their answer anymore. But I'm not going to say that Keith Lee isn't a good wrestler, because he is. But what I am going to tell you is that I don't know if Keith Lee is going to be fighting Asuka or Ricochet. And if so, I don't think he's the one that can beat them. Well, here comes Keith Lee to the ring now, Aiden English says. Maybe he'll say I'm wrong. Maybe he'll show me that I'm wrong about what I said. Alright everyone, it's me, Keith Lee. And everyone knows that when I started out wrestling, I was in EPW. And I won EPW heavyweight winnings, which is now being prolonged in WWE now. And then I went to WWE, and I was on NXT, and I won the WWE NXT North Vinlander winnings, you know, and then after that, I ended up winning the WWE NXT heavyweight winnings, and then I went from NXT to Raw, and I had some good matches here and there, didn't win nothing, but it was alright. Then I went from WWE to AEW, when I won AEW tag team winnings with Isaiah Scott. Now, a lot of folks will say that I haven't done nothing since then. But I'm going to tell you right now, Asuka or Ricochet, whoever happens to be the TWF heavyweight fighter, coming on the 20th, I'm coming after you. And I will be the TWF heavyweight fighter. You know, I will win that strap that goes back to Earthquake and 9 between 93 YL. I will win that. It will happen. And I dare anyone to tell me that I am wrong, you know, about that. Well, here comes Becky Lynch now, coming to the ring now. Keith Lee, you can cut the shit. Because I've worked more harder than you. So I think I should be the TWF heavyweight fighter. Don't give me your sob saga about how things didn't work out in EPW and WWE and AEW. Alright? You couldn't handle it in EPW. You couldn't handle it in WWE, and you couldn't handle it in AEW. Alright? And let's be way earnest about shit. I never gave up. I could have been fired many times, but I never gave up. Yeah, we hear your saga, Becky Lynch, about how you taught everyone how to be great. Bullshit, Becky Lynch. You didn't teach anyone anything. All you were was someone who got lucky in all the skilled wrestling businesses you were in. And you got lucky. One time you got lucky. In 2009 YL to 2020 YL, you got lucky. And they thought about letting you go and saying, oh, well, folks seem to like her. Let's put straps around her. You think I didn't put in the time? You didn't think that I didn't work hard? I did. When I was in EPW, I worked hard. And I won EPW heavyweight winnings. When I came to WWE, I worked hard, and I became the WWE NXT North Finlander fighter. Then I became the WWE NXT heavyweight fighter. And I went to Raw. And yes, I seeked to do everything I could do. But things were against me, Becky Lynch. I didn't have the same flay that you had. Everyone looked at me and say, oh, Keith Lee, fuck your song, and I lost. And the song that Anthony Medella made for me was on NXT wasn't good enough. So Anthony Medella made a new song for me when I went on Raw. Then I had matches with Drew McIntyre and Randy Orton. I could have won the WWE heavyweight winnings, but no, it didn't happen. And then they called me Bear Claw Keith Lee, and then they fired me. What was I going to do, Becky? Stand there and say you can't fire me? They did. And I went to AEW, won AEW tag team winnings. And you know what? I can't help it. Things didn't go well. But I don't want you to think you're greater than me, Becky Lynch, because you're not. I'm greater than you, Keith Lee, because I never yielded. WWE could have had me fired many times. Over those years, Vince McMahon and Hunter Helmsley, and Vince McMahon and Carlotto, and Vince McMahon and Hunter and Johnny Ace, and Vince McMahon and Hunter Helmsley, and even later on, Ariel Dell, Patrick Whitesell, and Mark Shapiro, Nick Kong, Hunter Helmsley, and then Ken Hahn could have smoothly had me fired. But they chose not to. You know, Nick Kong and Hunter Helmsley could let me go any time. But they know I'd just go somewhere else. And I'd just make TNA great, or AEW great, or NWA great, or MLW great. You think you make everything great, Keith Lee says, but you don't. And don't shame me and think you're greater than me, because you're not greater than me, Becky Lynch. Well, let's see. We all know your wife, Mia Ying, didn't quite do very well in her first run in WWE, her first run in TNA, her 20th run in WWE, her 20th run in TNA, her 20th run in WWE. You don't even talk about her, Becky Lynch. Don't even talk about her. You made it between me and you. It shouldn't have happened. You know. All right, Ric Flair says, that's enough, Becky Lynch. That's enough. Keith Lee, I can understand things haven't been going the way you wanted them to go when you were in EPW and WWE and AEW. And Becky Lynch, you're not greater than Keith Lee. You will have a match with Keith Lee. So we'll see. Call yourself the man. Well, I don't like that either, Ric Flair says. You stole my saying, because my one saying was to be the man, you got to beat the man. And you haven't beat any man to make yourself. You haven't beaten someone. So how can you be the great when you haven't beaten anyone to be the great? You're fighting Keith Lee today. Well, Becky Lynch just kind of pissed off Ric Flair, the main wicker of the toy wrestling gathering, who always said you had to beat the man to beat a man. And Becky Lynch calling herself the man, so that didn't go well. And Becky Lynch thinks that she can beat Keith Lee. Oh! But Keith Lee's not having any of it, Joey Styles says. Keith Lee picking up Becky Lynch and a body slam. Down goes the fight keeper. Wakefulness, not his friend, Joey Styles says. Keith Lee is no arrow, Jonathan Coachman says. So Becky Lynch won't have a smooth way of beating him, even if she thinks she can. Becky Lynch getting beat up right now by Keith Lee, who did another body slam. You know, Keith Lee has been always working hard, Aiden English says, in EPW, WWE, or AEW. And Becky Lynch to come out there and shame him like that wasn't right. Oh! Becky Lynch right now got Keith Lee in a manhandle slam. But will that be enough to beat Keith Lee here today on Impact or Hit, Joey Styles says. If the Fight Lord can reckon 1, 2, 3, Jonathan Coachman says. 1, 2. That was a flow reckoning right there. Becky Lynch could have had it won, but the Fight Lord was too float getting off the ring steeple to reckon a 1, 2, 3, Aiden English says. Where do you get that from? Joey Styles says. Aiden English, where do you get that from? And now Keith Lee has now slammed Becky Lynch and is teaching Becky Lynch some on-look. Something that Becky Lynch has fully forgotten about, Joey Styles says. Keith Lee down on Becky Lynch. I think Becky Lynch didn't forget about on-look, Jonathan Coachman says. I don't think she ever learned to give any on-look to anyone. Aiden English says, when you're on top like she is, you don't have to give any on-look to anyone or anything. Aiden English says, and I think Keith Lee is not going to beat Becky Lynch here today. 1, 2, 3. Ding, ding, ding. Here is your winner, Keith Lee. Well, Keith Lee has beat Becky Lynch here today on Impact or Hit. And we do know that Becky Lynch is not happy. You know, is not happy with losing to Keith Lee. And you know that she is going to be pissed off over losing, over to losing to Keith Lee. Yeah, we do know that Becky Lynch is going to be unhappy with losing to Keith Lee here today on Impact or Hit, Joey Styles says. Well, that's true, Jonathan Coachman says. Hopefully Becky Lynch has learned to show some on-look to Keith Lee and get off her high horse, Jonathan Coachman says. Which I believe Joey Styles says that she's been on for some time, thinking that she's greater than everyone else and thinking she taught everyone else how to be great. Aiden English says she might believe that in her mind that she taught everyone how to be great, but I can name a lot of other wrestlers that can say the same thing, that they taught folks how to be great. Well, alright then, Aiden English. Alright, take it away, Jim Ross. Thank you, Joey Styles and Jonathan Coachman. I'm going to be talking with Becky Lynch here today on Impact or Hit. You know what, Jim Ross? I don't think you were too high on me anyway, were you? Well, Becky Lynch, by the time you came into WWE, my 2-whiff run in WWE came to an end. I was already fired from WWE in 23rd between FYL, so I was gone by the time you came to WWE. Alright? By the time I had my 3-whiff run in WWE, 27 between YL to 29 between YL, you were already out of NXT and you were already on SmackDown or on Raw by that time. And I wasn't handling skill dealings anymore at that time. That was Hunter Hearst Helmsley. That was Cal Carlotto. Alright? But Becky Lynch, you thinking that you're greater than everyone else isn't true. Oh yeah, Jim Ross, how did you ever teach anyone how to be great? By wearing a bullshit cowboy hat that you never wanted to wear, but Vince McMahon made you wear it starting in between 97 YL. Oh, because you called matches? Because you worked in, what was it? You worked in SDW, UWF, MACW, WCW, WWF, SMW, WWF, WE, NJPW, WNAW. I done, and I taught the world how to be great. And Keith Lee, he's fired. He couldn't cut it in EPW. He couldn't cut it in WWE. He couldn't cut it in AEW. That could be your belief, Becky Lynch. But you only were on top, Becky Lynch, for a year and a half. And how can you say you taught folks how to be great when there were sundry other folks out there that could say the same thing? Oh, who would those other folks be? Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, The Rock, John Cena, Dave Bautista, Bill Goldberg, Sting, Ric Flair, the Ultimate Warrior, or Overfighter, or The Undertaker. I was one of very few women that showed folks how to be great. Well, you know, Becky, if it wasn't for folks like Alundra Blades, or Trish Stratus, or Lita, then I don't really think you would be doing what you're doing if it wasn't for them doing what they did. Yeah, but I've been on top, and I've done a lot more than what those three ever did. And Keith Lee, he will not be the TWF heavyweight fighter. That will be me. Well, that's my talk with Becky Lynch. Back to you, Joey Styles and Jonathan Coachman. Thank you, Jim Ross, for talking with Becky Lynch here today on Impact or Hit. And that's all the time we got here for Impact or Hit. I, Joey Styles, with Jonathan Coachman and with Aiden English. We hope you like Impact or Hit, and we'll see you tomorrow for Friday Night SmackDown.